You have the mission statement. Go ahead, Irene.
Okay. Our mission: Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Conrado and Paola. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you so much, Irene. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Paola and Conrado. Paola and Conrado Leslie lived a fairy tale life in Del Mar, California, with their only child, Nicolas. Paola was a stay-at-home mom, and Conrado was an engineer who worked from home. They shared wonderful adventures traveling with Nicolas to exotic locations to kitesurf, scuba dive, and surf. In the summer of 2016, Nicolas, a third-year student at UC Berkeley, traveled to France to participate in a study abroad program. Paola is from Italy, and Conrado was raised in Spain, so they had traveled to Europe many times with Nicolas to visit family. This, however, was Nicolas's first time traveling to Europe alone. Little did Paola and Conrado know that their world would soon be turned upside down. It was July 14th, 2016, when their son and 85 other innocent victims were killed when an ISIS-inspired terrorist used a large truck as a weapon of mass destruction to plow through the unsuspecting crowd that had gathered to celebrate Bastille Day. Paola and Conrado suffered tremendously, but they grieved differently and soon began to grow apart. Their future as a couple was in question, but worse, they had lost the will to live. Their world revolved around Nicolas. Every move they made, every decision they took had Nicolas in mind. Life suddenly had lost its purpose. However, thanks to amazing signs and messages that they continue to receive from Nicolas, their love for life, each other, and humanity has flourished. Nicolas continues to be a big part of their life, and he continues to show them the way forward. Paola and Conrado will be sharing some of the amazing signs that they have received and how these gifts from Nick have convinced them of a higher reality, a life after life. Paola and Conrado have found healing in embracing love over hate. They are shining light parents, eager to share their story about love, forgiveness, and the joy in knowing that their beloved Nicolas continues to be by their side. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Paola and Conrado Leslie.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Elizabeth and Irene. What a beautiful introduction, and just said almost everything that we are going to present today. And I'm so glad to be here today with my husband, Conrado.
Hello, everybody.
And with all of you shining light parents. They're really an inspiration for me and very important for my journey. So like you said, Elizabeth, today we are going to share our story and some of the signs, messages, and synchronicities that we received from our son, Nicolas. And we like to call them gifts from Nick because they are so important and so special to us. Because we believe that our son is still alive and from his dimension is guiding us and just like he's helping us along our journey. So we are really, you know, that's how we are going to make it all this journey that we are in.
Well, Paula's right. We've received some incredible and amazing stories and messages. But I think what's even more amazing is the fact that we got to witness other parents share the same incredible and amazing messages that they got from their kids. Because, at first I was reluctant to accept these signs or messages or synchronicities. I just couldn't accept them. I would just look right through them. Didn't make any sense to me. But slowly but surely, they became so intense and so frequent that I just could no longer write them off as random coincidences. I thought, wait, I'm just fooling myself if I just don't open my eyes. I started sharing some of the stories with some friends, and then one day, Casey Gahn, in fact, a friend and mentor of mine, an excellent writer, just encouraged me, said, Conrad, you have to start, writing, put your feelings into words and share them. And I did. I wrote a short story called Gifts from Nick, and that's what I'd like to present here today. And with that permission, I'd like to go ahead and share my screen.
Yes, of course. Sorry, no permission necessary.
Let's see. And there you go. Well, like Elizabeth said in her introduction, life with Nick was like a fairy tale. We had an incredible life. We lived in paradise, what I consider paradise, a little community in San Diego, Del Mar, just with the ocean to the west, an estuary to the north, another estuary to the south. We were like a little island, just miles, hundreds of miles, millions of miles away from any terrible thing that you would hear in the news, especially, terrorist attack. Nicolas was our center of our universe. Every move that we did, everything that we did in life really had Nicolas in mind. Every decision that we took had Nicolas in mind. In fact, we moved to Del Mar because of the school district so Nicolas could get a better education. He was the driving force behind my ambition. I got myself in a situation where, I had a big mortgage and everything, but I knew it was worth it because all I wanted to do is to make sure that Nicolas was set up. I wanted to leave him a legacy. Like the legacy that my parents gave me, but more. My parents gave me an excellent education and most important, lots of love. But I wanted to do something more for Nicolas. I wanted to set him up, so he could be financially safe, so he'd be comfortable being able to reach for the stars and reach for his passions. And if he fell flat, at least be able to, survive in his older age, something that I wasn't able to do. A lot of my decisions were really based on economic decisions for careers and stuff, and I was never able to pursue my true passions. Nicolas was athletic, he was smart, he was funny, he was kind, he was generous. We learned a lot about Nicolas, in fact, after he transitioned. We went through his room one day and we found that he had a diary. In his diary, he mentioned how he really liked to do random acts of kindness to other people. I was like, wow, that's interesting. And he was just the kind of guy that would just walk into a room and just light up the whole room. He had this smile that was just incredible. But most important, I think, for his friends, he was able to bring in friends from all sorts of different groups together. Nicolas played lacrosse, he played football, he surfed, he dove, he kitesurfed, but he also, was studious. He was in the speech and debate team, and his friends kind of ranged from all sorts of different groups that you wouldn't typically see them together. He was just a good friend and the best child that we could ever have asked for. And then suddenly, one day, as Elizabeth said, our life just turned upside down. Nicolas was in France doing a study abroad program. He was walking down the Promenade Anglais. He's looking at the fireworks where some man, just full of hate and sick, used a truck as a weapon of mass destruction to run over and kill 86 people and injure hundreds. And Nicolas was a victim. We were lost. And the only thing I could think about was words that my mom used to tell me. She passed about a year before he did, that I could remember when something would happen bad, she would say, Dios mío, qué desgracia, which means, oh my God, what a disgrace. But growing up in Spain and having Spanish my first language, we have a different meaning of this gracia, of this grace. It's not like you're an executive and you got fired for stealing out of your company and you're disgraced. For us, you know, disgrace means that you fell from the grace of God. And I just felt her just looking at me saying, que desgracia, you know, what a disgrace. How, and I just couldn't get over that, thinking, how could God forsake us? What did we do? We were good people. How could we be punished like this kind of punishment, this disgrace that I call it, fall from grace? Suddenly, all my passion was lost. You know, I could no longer really do my job. I didn't have the drive to provide my clients with quality or service. You know, we thought that everything was lost. You know, before this happened, you know, we had this incredible love for life. You know, we traveled the world having fun, having adventures. We had a great time. We didn't want to miss a moment of life. You know, life was our friend and time was our enemy, because we knew that sooner or later, you know, we'd pass, and we didn't want to leave anything behind. But once Nicolas transitioned, all of a sudden, we became scared of life. Life became our enemy. And I figured that death was really the way I was eventually going to see my son. And the only way I would be my son together was either with enough time or death. So death stopped being an enemy, and I almost started flirting with death, knowing that he would be my ticket back to Nicolas. It was very dark times, and we grieved differently. You know, just in top of the pain that we had, just seeing my wife even suffer even more was just unbearable. You know, she went into this attitude that she's never going to love again. She's never going to smile again. She became angry. And if you knew her before, she was just a most gentle and the nicest person. Myself, I just became numb, you know, frustrated, knowing that every single survival strategy that had helped me become successful failed. I could not find a solution. There's nothing I could do to help. I was helpless. You know, our marriage and our future was looking dim. You know, it seemed like I was looking at a slow motion train wreck, and I was a passenger. And I realized that there's nothing I could do to stop this train wreck. It was slowly building momentum, and I knew where it was headed. And the way I figured it was heading, it was like, I figured that one real possibility would be that Paola would slip into complex grieving, complicated grief, and maybe even wind up in a mental institution. While me, I figured that I could just wind up divorced, living in a studio apartment in some beach place and drink myself to death. And like I said, things were looking very dim for our future. You know, we didn't have a reason to live. You know, Nicolas was the center of our universe, and all of a sudden he was gone. But slowly but surely, messages from Nick started appearing, and they really became a game changer for us. It really changed our perspective. And as I said at first, I rejected him. I just couldn't accept it. I wrote him off as random acts of coincidences. But slowly, I was convinced. I mean, the evidence was just so overwhelming. I said, wait a minute, something's going on here. I think Nicolas is really trying to communicate with us. So today, I'd like to share with you some of the messages that we received before he transitioned and then after he transitioned. You know, we received some messages before he left that we would have never thought they were messages, but, you know, after the fact, we realized what they meant. And then some other messages that we received, and we picked those because they had, you know, we were able to have at least 2 people there. So I knew that it wasn't a hallucination. And some of them, I was able to capture them in photographs. First of all, like I said, I'm going to talk about some of the messages that they were kind of like foreshadows. And the first one came from my mother. You know, one day, Paola and I were sitting in the couch watching a movie, and Paola got up to use the restroom, and I put the movie on hold. And as she was coming back, she let out a scream as she passed the corridor.
I felt like a presence. I felt that there was somebody on the corner of my corridor. And then I thought it was at the beginning Conrado because he's a joker and he likes to do these things all the time. But no, nobody was there. And then I just went to sit down on the couch and I told Conrado.
And she told me, it's like, I just felt it was so weird. I felt like a presence of somebody. I thought it was you hiding behind the wall that were going to scare me. And I said, no, Paola, no. I go, come on, sit down. Let's just finish the movie. I put the movie back on and we continued watching it. And moments later, Paola put her hand on my shoulder and said, I just got a message to tell Nick that there's life after life.
And that was not coming from my brain because I really never even used the word. And so it was just like a download. It was a complete download on my brain. So it was very, very particular.
Well, I didn't know what to say or what to do. I just looked at her and I just cracked up. I said, Paola, you are so weird. I can't believe it. You are so weird. And then I started laughing. She started laughing. We all laughed and we continued the movie. Well, probably about minutes, it's like 15 minutes afterwards, we get a call from the hospital where my mom was. And they said that she had passed and that I had to do, what was I going to do with her body? And all of a sudden, I was in shock. I mean, I completely forgot about what happened with Paola. We were just torn into this thing, what do we do now? What's going to happen? And, it was very sad. My mom was very close to me. We didn't know. As time progressed, we had a memorial for my mother. And then Paola came up to me and said, well, you know what, I just thought, what are we going to tell him? Should we tell Nicolas what happened before your mom passed? And at first I said, no. I said, Nick's in his, first year of Berkeley and college, the first time he's been away. I don't think we should tell him that, like, hey, by the way, before mom passed, Paola had a shared death experience with her where she got this message to tell you. And we went back and forth, but then we realized that the message was so intense and it was so direct. It wasn't like, my sons, I love you very much, or something like that, or, take care, it was like, tell Nicolas that there's more to life after life. So that was a foreshadow for us. The next foreshadow, we did tell Nicolas. And Nicolas barely reacted. He just said, at that point, Nicolas didn't really believe in anything. He just believed that, you live here, we live in Iraq and you go around the sun. Each revolution, is 1 year and so many people get so many and then it's over. And I always try to convince him that, hey, Nicolas, maybe you got to think that there could be more. But I could never really argue with him because, he was the co-captain of his high school speech and debate team. And I just didn't have, he just would always win in these debates. But, later on, we did find out that it must have done something to him because he started doing meditation and he was reading all about quantum mechanics and about the biology of life and thinking and all these abstract thoughts that I think that is, in a way, we helped him prepare for the transition. The next big sign of things to come was on a second visit that he came down to visit us from college. And we went out to buy him a jacket. And in the way home, I said, let's go eat in a restaurant. And he's like, no, I'd rather eat at home. I said, no, Nick, that way mom doesn't have to cook. And he's like, no. And I was like really surprised. And I could tell there was something wrong. And how, as a parent, you could tell when there's something wrong with your kid. They tell you no, there's nothing wrong. I was saying, Nicolas, what's wrong? And he kept on saying, nothing, Dad, there's nothing wrong. And I go, Nicolas, tell me, you could tell me what. And I kept on pressing and pressing and pressing until he broke down in tears. And he goes, Dad, I just don't know. He goes, I'm doing great in school. I have lots of friends. I love my life. But somehow I feel like this world is not big enough for me. That I need more. It's not big enough for me. And I often have this weird feeling that I feel the pain of other people, physically feel their pain. When I look at them, I could feel what they're suffering and it hurts me. And I was, again, shocked. I didn't know if he would have said, Dad, I'm failing this class. I'm not doing good. I would have been able to handle it. But instead, it was something so bizarre. I just almost laughed. I said, Nick, what are you saying? Are you saying you're an alien? You know, what are you telling me? And I just like brushed it off the rug, and we never really discussed it anymore. The other sign, but I think that he was kind of like struggling at that moment. I think he knew that something was going to happen, that he almost didn't belong in this earth, you know, and that he was ready to move. And then the last night that he came, you know, to our house right before he left in his study abroad program, came to me and he asked me, he goes, Dad, you know, I know my mom, you know, my grandmother and my grandfather, but you never really told me much about my ancestors in my dad's side. You know, my dad was from Cuba and he had relatives from Cuba and Jamaica, but we never really traveled there. So I sat down with him. I said, well, and I told him all these stories my dad used to tell me when he was little and the things that he had. And it was just really interesting that he was asking about his ancestors, maybe, you know, like preparation for the people that he was going to meet that were waiting for him on the other side. And then lastly, you know, we did so many things together, and we had my staircase. I had an office upstairs, and the whole office was lined with photographs of our adventures. And he went up with Paola for some reason, and in the way up, he told her something very odd also.
Yeah, we were going up the stair, and it was the last night. It was here with us in San Diego, and he just was looking at the picture going up, and he said, we grew up together, didn't we? He said, we really grew up together, didn't we? And it just melted my heart. I felt so, I said, yes, Nicolas, we did. It was just beautiful.
It was just very touching, you know, saying how we grew up together, and we did, you know, we had these incredible adventures, always together, almost like we were all the same age. Now, I guess my journey, I guess, really begins through an angel visitation. And it was so intense and so vivid that I remember every detail, and I'll never forget. Yet, for a long time, I was really embarrassed and kind of like shamed to even talk about it. You know, I've always worked in engineering and scientific projects, you know, where there's logistics, you know, health and safety involved, budgets, and it was just having an angel visitation was just so far away from my world reality that I was just scared to tell anybody. And I only shared it with very few individual people. And I was in bed after it happened, probably about a week. And as I was laying down, I dozed off, and suddenly this being appeared in the foot of my bed. And he was huge. I had never seen anything like this, you know, in my life. Huge, almost as high as the ceiling, with an elongated body and kind of like almost over-exaggerated chest, like, you know, buff, yet not over-bulked, just like perfect, you know, but it just didn't seem of this world. And he had this glow of like a light inside of him, kind of like a golden light. And I just couldn't move. I could see him, and I could see the tips of my feet and the sheets, my hands laying beside me, but I was frozen. And the only thing I could say was, Nick, is this you? And he looked at me, but he didn't say anything. And suddenly he opened up these huge white wings, and he moved them, and I could feel the air in my face, yet I could not move. And I was paralyzed just looking at him. And then telegraphically, he said, look through the window, look through the window, but in a compelling way. Suddenly I was released. He disappeared. And the first thing I did, just automatically, just got up, you know, half asleep, and opened up the curtains and looked through the window, hoping, you know, knowing that I was going to see something incredible. But I couldn't see anything, and I didn't understand. I kept on looking and looked and looked and stood there for minutes until I laid back down. And as soon as I laid down again, same thing, looked through the window. And I got up again, and it went on back and forth almost all night. Later, I guess I realized that the message was kind of preparing me for the signs that we were going to receive. Because, you know, look through the window was a metaphor for look beyond the veil. It was words that I would have never said, and it was very interesting the way it was look through the window, because I may have said in my conscious being, look out the window, But I guess for me, looking out the window is so different than looking through the window, because looking out the window means that you're out of the window, you're outside, kind of immersing, interacting with this other realm, versus look through the window for me was that, hey, you could stay here in your reality, but just glance through and just notice that there's a higher reality. There's something else going on outside the window, outside, that you're not seeing inside your place, and you'll never see until you see. So I think after that, that really opened up my my mind and my heart to these signs, and I'm no longer ashamed or scared. In fact, I'm proud to say that I had an angel visitation. Nicolas is in the light. This was, I guess, nothing short of a miracle. You know, during the first week in the house, we were just destroyed. We couldn't see any friends, anybody in the house. We didn't know what to do. We had one friend, Beverly, and she's a psychologist and a spiritual, very spiritual, and she was there often, just helping us, you know, calming us. She was very gentle with us. And one day she came down and she was working with Paola, and Paola Paola kept on asking, where is Nicolas? And our friend Beverly kept on saying, Nicolas is in the light. And it was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I could feel that Paola was getting more and more angry about every time he would say that Nicolas is in the light.
Yeah, I was really angry, very confused, and I really didn't think I was going to make it, and in a very dark place. And but instinctively, I kind of felt that Nicolas' energy was still around us, like it was not completely gone. But I didn't know where. Where did it go? And so, you know, I was asking, but where is Nicolas, to my girlfriend? And when she was telling me, Nicolas is in the light, Nicolas is okay. So that was not resonating very good to me, because I was so confused. I didn't know anything about afterlife. And so I was just thinking, what do you mean? Nicolas is just like a orbless, formless orb, like hanging there in the universe. And what happened to my beautiful son, all this future project, everything, am I going to see again his face? And I was in this totally confusion when a miracle happened, just there in front of our eyes.
Well, as I sat down listening to Paola and our friend Beverly go back and forth and realizing that it was getting more and more intense, I started drifting off and started looking at a photograph that I had taken of Nicolas in one of our kite surfing sessions. And I took this photograph at close to in the evening, and the sun was setting, so the photograph was overexposed, so I could barely see his face. And I could hear Paola and Beverly discussing about the light, and all I could do is like look at this photograph, and I was just wondering, wow, it was a beautiful day. It was the last time we went kiting, and what a bummer. I remember Nicolas so happy, yet I cannot see his face, you know, because the photograph was overexposed. Well, at that moment, Nicolas, Paola again said, well, what do you mean he's in the light? And then Beverly said, he's in the light. And at that moment, a beam of light penetrated through our skylight and shined this perfect frame around his face, just lighting up his face and his beautiful smile.
And for me, it was just like an incredible, magical moment, because it was like Nicolas answering to my question. And it was just Nicolas telling me, Mom, I'm here. I'm still here with you. Look at my face. Look at my nice smile. I'm here and I'm going to help you to go back to the light. But you need to do some work with me. We need to work together. And so that's what I did. And so after that, I totally immersed myself in studying and learning about the afterlife. And I probably read like close to 100 books in less than in 8 months. And then, you know, after 8 months, again, I was guided, you know, from Nicolas. I don't believe in coincidence anymore. And to find the group Helping Parents Heal. And then, you know, when I learned that, you know, there were all these parents, they were on my same journey, and they were receiving signs from their kids, and they were trying to communicate with their kids. Then I just realized I was not going crazy. And I just felt that I was on the right path. And for the first time, I had some hope that if those parents, they were ahead of me on their journey, more years ahead of me, they were able to have a normal life again and to find joy again in life, then maybe there was a hope for me to go back to have a life again.
I want to show you guys a photograph again. It was like a cloudy day, the kinds that we have in San Diego. They call it June gloom, May gray. And you could look at the light. The light is so intense that it basically blocks out the horizon. I don't know if you could see this, but there's the horizon and it's completely whited out. All you really do is see his face. That same night, I was still buzzing from what had happened. And I was laying in bed and I grabbed my phone and I was staring at that photograph because I was able to capture the photograph. You know, Beverly said, Conrad, you better take a picture of that quick. And I was able to capture a photograph of that. And that night I was laying in bed wondering, you know, just looking at it, just in awe. And then I finally said something that Paola used to always say, but I had never really asked. I said, Nicolas, where are you? And I kind of like whispered it because I didn't want to wake Paola up. And Siri answered, right here. And you can still see, that's a screenshot, and you can still see the background of the photograph I was looking at, which was Nicolas in the light. The next one is called Special Delivery, and this is a very interesting one in that we were going through some really difficult times. You know, we were fighting. You know, Paola was like so angry. I remember that we had a punching bag in the garage and we had a tennis racket and she just grabbed that and she just hit it and hit it and hit it until she was exhausted. And I was up in my edge. And well, the story begins when Nicolas passed. His friends that he met in France, they held a vigil for him. And during that vigil, they celebrated, put the Italian flag, they grabbed a photograph of Nicolas. They all said beautiful words. And at the end, they gave us the photograph. And as soon as we got home, and the flag that they signed. And as soon as we got home, Paola, first thing she wanted me is to hang that photograph up, that picture up in the wall. And I tell you, Paola liked it, but every time I would see the photograph, I would just cry. It was just breaking me down. I didn't like the photograph because all the other photographs, and I've had so many photographs, or Nicolas, thousands. I was the photographer and I knew exactly what was going on in the background. I knew what we were doing before. I knew what we did after. I knew what was going on. I know the whole story. I can almost relive it. But here we are, this photograph of Nicolas on our wall that he looked strange to me. I just didn't know the story. And we went back and forth. Paola insisted. Finally, I think in the third day of arguing about it, I said, Paola, listen, I give in to you when things bother you. I stop. But you have to do this for me. I cannot. You could put this picture in a bedroom or somewhere else, but I just can't have it in the wall. I look at it and it makes me too sad. I need more. I need to know more of what was going on. It doesn't do anything for me. Within minutes of me having said that, we heard a knock at the door. I open the door and the mailman gives me this package. I open up the package and what do I find? A photo album, which is this one in the middle, a photo album that had the same photograph that I was saying that I wanted off the wall because I needed more. And inside the photo album that had like at least, like 20 pages or so of photographs, it had photographs of what Nicolas was doing, where he was, what he was doing. Basically, what I wanted to know about what needed more to know was answered right there and right then. And the synchronicity, we were discussing it. I was arguing, I was making my stand that picture had to leave, and to have the postman deliver it and to have the cover picture of that photo album be the same photograph, I just found it just beyond random. This one's interesting. It's You Belong in Hawaii. Hawaii was always our family paradise. We started going there when Nicolas was little, and we had so many adventures. Nicolas learned how to swim in a tide pool in Hawaii, in Oahu. We loved it so much that actually about 20 years ago, I bought a condominium thinking that we were going to use it as a vacation home. Nevertheless, reality hit in, and we realized that we could not afford to keep an empty place, so we rented it and never stepped foot in that house the whole time we've had it for 20 years. Well, right before Nicolas left to France, I was just so proud of him. And I just talked to him to the side and I said, Nicolas, I'm so proud, man. You've turned out to be such a great young man. And I want you to know that I have your back. And I've been really doing some calculations. And I figured out that we won't have to sell our home in Del Mar so that I could retire. I figured out, because that was my original plan, we were going to sell our house and then downsize somewhere. And I said, I don't think I have to do that. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you this house. Obviously, we'll rent it out, we'll use the income, but once we're gone, we will not sell it. This house will always be yours. And I was expecting like a huge hug, and it's like, Dad, thanks, But instead, he looked at me with his wisdom, and he smiled, and he said, Dad, you don't have to worry about me anymore. He said, I'm in Berkeley, I'm doing great. He goes, you know what? You guys should really enjoy life. You guys should really move to Hawaii. That's where you guys belong. You guys belong in Hawaii. Don't worry about me. I thought that was like so touching. I just didn't realize, I was like in awe. I didn't know if he was just being naive. Here's your parents giving you a house, or if he was just overconfident that he was just going to be so successful. But I did know that it was all about love. He loved us so much. Well, after Nicolas' transition, I had a dream visitation of him, and we were in Hawaii, and Nicolas was dressed in Polynesian clothes, and he was dancing. And I would go to grab him and hug him, but every time I would hold him, he'd slip from my hands and appear somewhere else smiling. And then I'd go there and I'd have him, and he'd smile. And then I was like chasing him around, following him around, but I could not grab him. I could not hold him. And I woke up, kind of like confused. Well, about a couple of weeks passed by, and suddenly I got a call from my tenant. And like I said, our place had been rented for almost 20 years, to like 5 different people that had been there like 4 years at a time. And the tenant said, Conrad, I just want to let you know that I'm moving out. And that was the last thing I wanted to hear. There's just no way I couldn't function. I couldn't do my job. I couldn't do anything. I could barely keep it together. The last thing I was thinking I could do is, hire somebody to show the house, fix up the house, paint it, find a new tenant. My attitude was, you know what? The bank could keep the house. I don't care. I just not interested, and I had just given up. And suddenly, a couple of days later, I had this download, and I said, wow, is this an opportunity? Is this what it all meant? Nicolas first told us that we belong in Hawaii, the dream visitation, and my tenant now moving to this place is empty, where here I am, and in this limbo. And I asked Paola, I go, Paola, maybe it's a sign that we should move to Hawaii for at least for a little while. So we decided just to give it a shot, and we thought that, okay, we'll rent our house temporarily to like, either vacation rental or to corporate rentals, longer term, rental. And we hired a realtor, but we never let that realtor in our house once. Every time we had somebody that wanted to see the house, we just happened to be crying. And, I was crying in one room, Paul was crying in the other room, and we just wouldn't let him in. Sometimes he'd even knock on the door, we wouldn't open. Finally, after like 2 months of going back and forth, I called him up and I said, look, I'm sorry, this is just not gonna work out. Let's take the house out of the market. Just when I thought that it was all done and we weren't going to Hawaii, I found out that our next door neighbors that had only moved in about 1 year ago were renting their house, and they were moving out. And I said, hey, by the way, our house is for rent. Well, I told them the story about our house right away without even thinking, even asking about the price. He said, Conrad, we'll take it. And they said, we only have one condition, that we're out in May. And May was the same time, I think May or June, I forgot when it was. At the end of May. That was the same time when our tenant was leaving our place empty. And I said, oh, this is a sign, man, let's do it. So we gathered up the courage and we packed our house, and And I'll never forget that. All of a sudden I had my second thoughts, you know, because they say, don't ever do anything drastic, you know, on your, you know, during the first year or something so dramatic as losing a child. But we just decided just to take a leap of faith and decided to do it. Oh, so we moved to Hawaii, and I could tell you that our first months here was not nice. You know, we did not meet the aloha spirit. It was not with us. You know, we found it, you know, it used to be such a paradise for us, but now it's just such a sad place. It was so lonely, sad, you know, it was just kind of weird to see everybody else being in a vacation spot and we feeling so low. And one day we decided to take a drive to the beach. And like I said, it took us almost like 3 months, 3 or 4 months even, you know, to go into the ocean. And like I said, the ocean was so important for us, but we couldn't even go in the water. Every time we went to the beach where we used to go with Nicolas, we'd just cry. So one day I said to Paola, come on, let's just go and just hang out at one of the beach. And Paola went up to get changed. And before she came down, I just had this download. I was like compelled to Google something that Nicolas said that was bothering me. When Nicolas told me that sometimes he felt like this world was too small and he felt the pain of other people, because I always kind of regret it. I said, God, that was such a cop-out answer that I gave him. Like, what, are you an alien? You know, and I laughed it off. So I Googled it, and as I went down on Google, I found something that said sometimes there's young people that come here and they leave early, and they're called star souls, and they come to this world to lift the vibration and lift the consciousness and spread love with so many people. And I was like, wow, it just immediately clicked with me. And I showed it to Paola and I said, Paola, look at this, you know? And we were happy for a little while. We were going, wow, that was very interesting. And we drove to the beach. We set up our beach chairs. We're watching the people at the beach. Yet we surely and quickly forgot about this star soul business. And our grief came back down, looking at everybody having fun. It seems like we were in another reality, you know, in another dimension where they're having fun, everybody's splashing and swimming and smiling, and we're sitting with this long face in our face. I turned to Paola and she had tears in her face. And I said, Paola, let's go take a walk. As we were walking down the beach, Paola said, what was that thing that you read again? What was it called? Star what? And I said, Star Soul. And she said, Star Soul. And I kid you not, right at our steps, we looked down and we saw this star made out of concrete right at our feet. It was so bizarre that I actually stepped over it and just kept on going because my brain did not want to recognize it as a sign. You know, it was just too bizarre. It was almost invisible. And Paola says, look, and she picked it up. And it's just amazing. You know, how did that star get there? How did it get there right at the same time that we were saying Star Soul? And how was it there in our path? This one I call the Rock of Joy. And it started really with a dream visitation for Paola.
I was still very struggling to find joy in my life. And it was 2 years already, the Nicolas transition. And one night I had a dream visitation. Nicolas came to visit me in a dream. And I remember that he was there in a kind of a bar setting with a lot of young adults. And suddenly I see him coming towards me. And I recognize it's Nicolas, and it was him, as he left, you know, the same age. He was wearing his favorite t-shirt, I recognized. And so I went to him and I hugged him, and then I look at him and I told him, Nicolas, I wanted to go where you are. And in that point, you know, Nicolas, he put his forehead against my forehead, and he looked straight in my eyes, and we did it, and I could see like so much love coming out from his eyes. And then it was kind of serious, and he told me, Mom, you can't. You still have to live your life and enjoy your adventures. And then boom, I woke up and I told Conrado right away.
So for me, it was like a clue that, you know, because we used to travel and that used to be Paola's passion. Never liked fancy clothes, fancy cars. She just liked to build memories together and traveling to different spots. So I looked around and I found this incredible trip to New Zealand from Hawaii. It was like $700. And I booked it. And it wasn't like the trips that we used to have. Obviously, you know, There was no planning. And I was getting a little frustrated because I was lost. You know, I was just driving from town to town, hotel to hotel, kind of going through the motion, kind of doing it for Paola. And one night in one of the hotels, I myself had a dream visitation. And it was so real. And I was transported to a place where Nicolas was in a home overlooking the ocean. And when I was there, I looked out the window and I saw the waves. And then right away, I realized, wait a minute, this is not real. These waves are breaking way too perfect. This is not real. I'm not, you know, this is somewhere else where I'm not supposed to be. And there was Nicolas. And I just walked towards him and I held him. And then I realized that it wasn't my reality. And I realized that I didn't belong there. But I said, there's no way that I'm leaving. I knew that Paola's waiting for me. I knew that I had a life, but I didn't care. I said, this is it. I'm not going to be yanked back to my reality. I'm staying here. And I was squeezing him as hard as I could. I go, there's nothing going to peel him away from me. If I get yanked back, like in a lot of my other dream visitations, he's coming back with me because I'm not leaving. I'm not going. And that's all I kept on saying. I'm not going. I'm staying right here. I'm staying right here. And as I'm chanting this, Nicolas just slipped through my grip and appeared by the door with a smile, leaving. And I was like, and I said, Nicolas, can't go. You know, don't go. Aren't you going to say something to me? And he looked at me and smiled. And telepathically, he said 3 things. He said, stay with mom, move forward, and find joy in life. And I got yanked back, that familiar feeling of coming back and waking up in reality. But this time I didn't say no. This time I just grabbed the pen and wrote down every detail, told Paola about it. And it was just amazing. So we kept traveling and we kept exploring. And that morning we asked the hotel keep, where are some places to see? And she said, well, on the way to your next destination, you might want to stop and take a look at the blue pools, where these 2 rivers, Glacier River meets another river in New Zealand. And the water is really blue. So we went there and we arrived and it was so beautiful. And we walked away from some of the people and we're looking at nature and we started to cry because we realized that it was so beautiful, yet we would never be able to share this moment with our son. And it was just very, very sad. And I saw Paola starting to tear up. And I said, Paola, listen, we can't go on like this. Nicolas said we need to find joy in life. That's what he said. And if we are really going to take all these signs seriously, if we really going to honor him, we need to take it literally. He said, find joy. We got to find a way to find joy. Paola looked at me and she said, you're right. We need to find joy. And as she looked down, something incredible happened.
So that's what I found, my precious rock of joy.
It was a river rock that had a crystalline formation growing on it, shaped with like a J with a circle around it. And they were tell you guys, you can see from the background, there's probably millions of these rocks. This one happened to be at her feet. And the crystals that you can't really tell from the photo, but it's 3D because the crystals kind of grow on top of the rock. We're just shimmering enough in the light to catch Paola's attention.
Yeah, it really caught my attention again. It was Nicolas, telling me, Mom, you need to find some joy. My dream visitation, Conrado's dream visitation, and now the rock of joy. And for me, and I was not doing so good. I was going through the motion of life, but struggling. And so I really, start to, reintegrate some joy in my life, to just even small dosage. And it was just one of my precious things that I own is my rock of joy.
As we grown and spend more time together, the signs are not as intense, but they continue to be beautiful. This last one was for Paola's birthday. We went out to have sushi at the North Shore, one of her favorite places. And it happens to be really close to an Italian ice cream place that Paola really loves. So I said, okay, let's go have some sushi and then we'll have some ice cream. So we got to the restaurant and I told the waitress that we're, there for Paola's birthday. And she asked, oh, so what are you guys doing? And I said, oh, okay, we're having lunch here and then we're going to have some gelato next door. And she brought us, she was really kind. And she brought us our meal. And after we finished, she cleared the table and said, look, it's your birthday. And are you sure you don't want any dessert? And I said, oh, no, we're having ice cream. And then she said, really, the ice cream's on, the dessert's on me for her birthday. And today we're featuring a specialty, crème brûlée. Well, that changed everything because that was Nicolas' favorite. And I said, you know what? Forget the ice cream that we're going to have. Let's go for the crème brûlée. And she brought us this crème brûlée, and it was just like Nicolas liked it. He liked it with that really hard glass-like top that you could take a spoon and kind of like crack it. He didn't like the soft one that we just like, kind of like we just crumble. And we ate it, and it was delicious. And as we're enjoying this crème brûlée, I noticed that there were 3 spoons, 3 settings on the table. She had cleared the table and set 3 settings with 3 spoons. And I said, Paola, look, man, there's 3 spoons. And she's like, she goes, yeah, oh my God, my only wish was that Nicolas was here with us. And when the waitress came, I go, excuse me, miss, you brought us this ice cream and this creme brulee, but you said, there's only 2 of us, but you said 3 spoons. And she looked at me like with this kind of like sassy look, kind of like insulted, like, gee, guys, I offer you guys free dessert. And now you're going to give me a hard time about setting the table. And she was like coming up with excuses, I don't know what she said, but all of a sudden I said, look, I'm not saying, I'm not, let me tell you, this was really beautiful for us and very special because, I told him about our son. And I said that, we had lost him and Paola's wish today was that he was with us. And the fact that you said 3 spoons just made it so special. And she just started crying. She gave us a hug and she goes, I counted. Obviously it's only 2 of you guys. I counted 2. I said 1, 2. I don't know. I have no idea where the 3rd came from.
Because after 2 days, I had like a video from Cat Bailey and my major Cat Bailey and my dear friend too. And the first thing, as soon as she opened the reading, she started to say, Nicolas is showing me, he's playing with spoons. He's playing with spoons. And I was like, oh my God, it was like incredible validation. And Nicolas was there with us for my birthday.
It's always there.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Nick's gifts and these messages have changed our lives. And even more so, just listening to other parents share their stories. Kind of like really helped us, realize that, hey, we're not alone in this thing. And I'm so glad that we have this platform to share these things because the more that we listen to other people's stories and the more people share, the more we realize that something's going on. And I really come to the realization that our children are really doing the heavy lifting. Before they used to be on top of our shoulders, like I have that photograph of Nicolas on top of me. But now, we're standing on their shoulders. They're doing the heavy lifting. They're lighting up the runway for us so we could take off, so our spirits could soar. They're lighting up the path to go forward. So that's one of the big lessons I learned. The other one, it was especially for Paola, was like finding joy again. I never thought that I was going to see that again.
And I think that this rock of joy is a gift not only for us, but for all us shining light parents. Because our children know how difficult it is, our life journey without having them here physically. But also they know that we need to find some joy and they want for us to find some joy. So we receive this rock of joy, but I really believe that our kids are working all together. And they're like as a team, and they're trying really to help us. And so I think this rock of joy that we receive, it belongs to all of us shining light parents. And I'm so honored to be able to, to share it with all of you.
Also the importance of gratitude. I was always grateful for our life that we had, and it was really difficult for me to find gratitude after this thing had happened. But then all of a sudden, I really realized that all the things that I was grateful for, and I'm a visual person, so I would get these flashes. And for me, it was almost like if, you know, my life with Nick was almost like a gourmet meal. Nicolas used to love food. He was a foodie. And I was figured that, no, you know, in life, I didn't get the buffet, you know, that long time. I only had a very brief taste of Nicolas, but it was just so wonderful, you know, and I wouldn't take it back.
For me, gratitude is a very important, you know, things that, because when I choose to integrate gratitude in my life, it was like a medicine for my soul. And it didn't come easy at the beginning, but when I made a choice to shift my attention and to be focused on the beautiful 20 years that we had with Nicolas and on all the blessings that I still have. So then it made a difference in my life. And now, you know, practice of gratitude, it became like a practice, a ritual in my life. And I feel that my vibration, they go higher every time that I do it, and I feel closer to Nicolas.
You know, for me, also gratitude, you know, the analogy that I like to think about, it's almost like if I was a peasant and I was invited to the castle to this great ceremony, that party that lasted a week, and there was wine and dancing and fun, and all of a sudden it ended. And I could have gone back to my peasant life, working the fields, just really bitter that all that fun ended. But instead, I just chose to enjoy, you know, and just to think of the gratitude that I had to have been able to be in his life for a short time.
So love versus hate. Love versus hate is a tough one for me, because at the beginning of my journey, I felt that all the love that I had in my life was gone. And I felt that the day of the tragedy, you know, my heart became a black hole, empty. And so I didn't know how to love anymore. But you know, I knew that all this anger, all this hate was just pausing on my soul. And so when slowly, you know, like I said, I started to reintegrate gratitude in my life. So I was curing, I was healing my heart, and I was and love was coming back slowly by slowly. And now 4 years, you know, on my journey, I feel that I have a lot of love on my heart, and I feel that I became a different person, and I'm more compassionate, and I can really relate it to people that are suffering. And I feel them in a path of spiritual growing. And with the help of Nicolas, I'm going to do this work that I have to do. And yeah.
For me, the love versus hate, you know, as a consulting engineer, I looked at it more mechanical almost. I always felt that I connected with Nick with this stream of love coming out of my heart, this solid stream. And I know that I'm connecting with him. Yet I hated the man so bad that did this. You know, just like anybody could hate anything. You could hate, you know, the drunk driver, the drug dealer, anything that takes your child away, you know. But I realized that by hating this person and thinking about this person, I was diversing or, you know, converting some of the love that I had into hate and giving it to him. And all of a sudden I realized, I go, wait a minute, that's stupid. Let's just focus all of it in love for my son and forget this man. And I've not reached yet the point where I'm able to forgive him, but at least I don't think about him. I think another point that I say that, you know, many people, and we've heard this many times before, they say that we're here as, you know, we're spiritual beings living in a physical world to experience, you know, life, you know, from a physical point. And I guess if that is the case, which I, you know, believe, I think that having this loss in our life and having the love in our life has allowed us to really see the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And now, you know, our experience has been really so much complete. Obviously, I would not choose it, you know, but nevertheless, you know, I accept it. And it's allowed me to become, you know, just a more rounded person, you know, to appreciate, you know, other people's pains, you know, to relate to the suffering of other people. and to appreciate unconditional love. One thing that I have learned also, that there's a greater reality, you know, and it's not only us that say, it's not only everybody in this group that believes it, but also scientists are now saying that what we see is not really real. Time is not real. You know, time changes, you know, distance changes, and there's just, but there is a greater reality, and that we just have to see through the window. And the other big lesson that I've learned is really not to judge the whole by the sliver that we see, because at the end, the whole is perfect. And for us, you know, when something terrible like this happens, you know, we'll only see one, obviously, and understandably so, we'll only focus one little bit, like one pixel out of the TV, and we'll see that pixel shine on, off, red, blue, but we'll have no clue that if we step back, that there's a whole movie going on in the photograph. So I will not be surprised that when my time comes and I get to rejoin with Nicolas, that I'll look back, and just in a lot of things that I've looked back at, and I thought they were terrible things, and I'll look back that it was a growing thing and a growth that I really needed to do. And in conclusion, I really want to say that Nick continues to be a big part of our life, and that his gifts continue to guide us through this journey. And we're very grateful. And with that, that concludes my presentation. And Elizabeth, if you could unshare my screen, that would be great.
Okay, I will. And oh my gosh, you guys are just so amazing. It is so wonderful to be able to listen to both of you. And what an incredible journey. I hope that everyone has understood from this that this is something that's possible for all of us. Also, I just want to let you know that there are so many incredible compliments in the chat box. Everyone is talking about how inspiring the two of you are. Before leaving this evening, we don't have much more time, but I just wanted to quickly say that Nicolas continues with all of these amazing messages, and just as close as last night, Galen was in a meeting with Bee, who is an angel whisperer, and she was doing the session and Nicolas came in. So I've asked Galen to share a little bit about what happened last night, which was just such a gift and so wonderful to hear. So Galen, do you mind telling us?
Sure. I'd be happy to. But first, I would like you to meet Conrad and Paolo, my husband, and there's a reason why I want you to meet him.
Hi, you two.
Hi.
Last night, I having the privilege of being in this meeting with this gal who communicates with angels. Lots of angels, but needless to say, Weston came through, and he said to her, apparently, what's with the name Nicolas? And she asked me about Nicolas. What do I know about that? And I said, oh, his middle name is Nicolas. And she said, okay, so what's the meaning? I mean, is he here on earth? What's going on? I said, no. That was my brother's middle name, is my brother's name, and he's still here. He hasn't passed. He's on earth. And okay, well, Weston's really talking about Nicolas. And so do you know a Nicolas on the other side of the veil? And I looked at the screen and I about jaw on the floor, because I thought, oh my God, he's with Paolo's son, excuse me. He's with Nicolas. And the whole thing's spun from there. And the next thing I'm hearing is that indeed, Nicolas has come together with our son, Weston, who passed 2 years ago, and they are surfing together, said the angels.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. And furthermore, the message came through the angels, through Weston, to tell B that please let Paolo know that Nicolas is great, and they are together, and they're having a good time, and they are buddies. And I said, oh my God, I will. And on went more information, but that was the news that I got to, I texted Paolo as soon as I got off this meeting, 2.5 hours later, and we were just, the two of us, you know, there was fire coming through the phone. We were so excited.
And I love that, Galen, because Nicolas, and thank you. for sharing it. And Nicolas, he loved when he was in this life here to introduce me to all his friends.
Oh.
There are so many. And it just like surprised me that it's not the first time that, that Nicolas, he find a way to introduce me to Medium, to reading, to days with other kids that, they are there and I know their moms. So it just really, it's him, That's,
I got chicken skin. When you're telling me that story, my hair was just like standing up.
Yeah, I got a little juice going here. I'm absolutely, frankly, I'm shaking, but it's very beautiful. It's beautiful. It's real. They are together. Our kids are together, and now we know each other this way.
Yeah, thank you.
That's why I want you to meet my husband, because our children are friends.
So.
I love it. And I want to also just say that you told me that B had said that actually you were supposed to meet Paola through Helping Parents Heal.
They orchestrated everything. They just are so busy.
They are doing the heavy lifting for us, for sure.
Well, it's just wonderful. I want to just give a shout out to Kathy as well for introducing us to B. That was just a wonderful thing because she is amazingly talented. That was only part of the reading that Galen had with her yesterday that was just so beautiful. So thank you, Kathy. And oh my goodness, Paola and Conrad, I'm going to have to send you all of these incredible comments in the chat box so that you can see everything that everyone's saying. But you two are definitely shining light parents, and I just feel so grateful that you're able to share all of this with us. I want to remind everyone that these stories, and actually a few more stories that are just beautiful as well, are available in this past September newsletter. So if you'd like to read all of them, they're also on the website, on the blog site of the website. So you can read every one of them. You can even photocopy them, which is, I mean, they're just absolutely beautiful. And I want to thank Galen for speaking about this. I want to thank all of you for being on here. And I just want everybody to know that all of our kids are together, not just Weston and Nicolas and Carly and Morgan and Chelsea and all of these other kids. They are all together. And especially when we have these meetings together, they love it. And they absolutely, that is the most important thing for them, is that we experience joy in our lives again. And I'm so grateful that Paola has recognized this.
And I just wanted to show 1 second again my rock of joy. It's like for all of us, Shining Light Parents, is a gift for all of us. Yeah.
It's beautiful, and it is so significant. It gives me goosebumps. I got goosebumps all through your story, so I truly appreciate it. I can't wait to be able to meet you guys in person, but I want to tell all of you that the day that I wait for with the most anticipation and love is the day that I get to hug every single one of your kids. Obviously, that won't be for a while. We've got a lot of stuff to do here while we're here. But every single one of these kids is an old soul, a wise soul, just some of the most incredible kids that have existed. So thank you. And I don't know if Irene has already unmuted everyone.
Yes,
but
yes, everyone can unmute.
let's let everyone unmute and say thank you and good evening.
What a fabulous
Conrad
evening.
and
Thank you
Paola.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Very good.
Thank you so much.